Hey guys, Josh with Goals Finishing. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about why you sand your furniture before you refinish it. If you like this video, don't forget to hit subscribe and check out some of my other videos. Alright, so I want to talk about a couple things here. I had this old shelf that is solid wood, I believe it's oak, and I wanted to discuss why this is important when you're refinishing furniture, okay? So, I've seen a lot of people put, they take maybe a sanding block at like 220 grit and they sand it over a dresser or something and then they throw on some paint, right? They make a video that has hundreds and thousands of views and they did it completely wrong. Because it looks easy doesn't mean it turns out good. Visually, about any paint on anything looks good. The problem is what people aren't looking at is the actual feel of it. And the sad part is in a video you can't do that, right? So to the eye, all these people's furniture looks excellent, right? But I bet you $100 you walk into that household and you start touching their stuff and you start realizing, oh wow, this is really rough. I can still see all the indentations. I can see all the planer marks and sanding swirls and all of that. I can see literally every problem with this piece of furniture and it looks like a giant band-aid they put on with the stain or paint. And so today we're going to show you why it is important. Don't go watching videos talking about how to sand in 3 minutes. Don't go watching videos on how to not sand at all and just avoid it completely. So the first thing I wanted to point out is these were probably manufactured in a shop. They probably were not handmade, and if they were, the person who handmade these made them in a similar style of what they would be manufactured. And what I mean by that is you can see all the planer marks going this way along the grain. As they run it through the planer, those teeth turn and create indentations along that you can see. They're called knife marks per inch. That's called KMP, knife marks per inch, or KMPI, KPI. Some people have different terms for it. I call it KMP. This is important because when these teeth leave these horizontal or perpendicular grain patterns or indentations along the grain, this takes finish differently. If you don't have one consistent flow of grain, you're going to have an odd finish, okay? And something to pay attention to is in the right light. If you catch it right in the sunlight, maybe on a nice day there's a good sunset and it's just gleaming at a horizontal angle to all of this, it's going to pop. And so when I say pop, I mean you're going to be able to look at the piece after you're done with it and see all of these marks. And so we want to avoid that. So what I'm going to do here is two different things. I'm going to take my Sharpie here. We're going to draw a line. It's not straight, but it's right down the middle, okay? We're going to draw a line, and I sanded this down with some 60 grit. So it's already been sanded a little bit, and this tells you how bad this was previously and what the manufacturer or person that did this forgot to do. I already hit it with a 60 grit sandpaper and there's still tons of blemishes you can see. It's not a good looking piece. So we're going to do one side at 60 grit. We're going to do a heavy push on the sander. We're going to sand across the grain, and we're going to leave it. We're also not going to clean the dust out of it when we're done sanding it. We're going to do a couple other things, okay? The point I want to get across is I want to show you when I do everything wrong, like a lot of people do, on one piece, and then when I do everything right on the other piece, what the simple difference looks like between stains, okay? And I'm going to throw a dark walnut stain on there. It's a Minwax dark walnut, and we're going to see the difference. Alright, so the first thing I did was I hit them both with 60. This one I went cross grain with the sander. Did a real rough job. It feels real rough too. This one I did with the grain, and I took my time and went smoothly across 2 or 3 times, okay? And that's what you want to do. The next thing we'll be doing is going up a grit, okay? So we're going to go from 60, and I'm going to hit it with a 120. Alright guys, so as you can see, this is already starting to look super clear. We're not going to take all the finish off because when you go from a light to a dark or a dark to a dark, you don't typically have to take all the stain out of there. The difficult thing is working with a dark to a light. When you have a dark finish or a dark stain that's saturated into the wood and you're trying to turn it into a light color or a texture, it is extremely difficult. And no, I'm not talking about painting here. You can usually get by with just scuffing, doing a light sanding schedule, and putting a paint on, okay? But we're talking stain here, where we will actually see the grain. So we want to get rid of most, but not all, of the stain. We just really want to make sure that the finish is off, the clear coat. So I wanted to discuss a couple things as well. Our next grit will be 220, okay? I prefer 180. I prefer finishing on 180, and the reason that is it just, when you go too smooth, it can actually it can close the pores off to the wood, okay? So when you use a high grit sandpaper like 300 or 400, even 220 I've seen on a couple species, that it really almost melts the lignin. It's like a bunch of straws, okay? You tie a bunch of straws with a rubber band together. If you sand the top of those real hard, it's going to melt them down and they're going to become flat, okay? When you provide little scratches at the top instead, what they do is they adhere to your stain really well. So when you melt the lignin, you're going to have issues with your stain blotching or not adhering at all, along with your finish not adhering at all. So there's that. And then the other thing you have to realize is on this one, on the rough patch over here, I pushed extremely hard on the sander, right? This can give you swirl marks and burn your wood and the lignin inside. So this will give us adhering problems. I let the sander do its work here. You rest your hand on top, provide very minimal amount of pressure, and that will give you a smooth surface. It will take a little bit more time, but that's the purpose of that, because you want a smooth surface to put that finish on. The next thing, and it's kind of a tip that I want to show you guys, on my last sanding schedule, on the 220 here that we'll do, I like to take a pencil, and this is how you provide an even finish or even sand along the entire surface. So lightly, please, put very small pencil marks. You guys probably won't be able to see this, I'm not sure, but there's very light pencil marks all the way along here. When you make it too dark, they can sink as you sand. The lead will sink down, so you don't want to do that. Just very lightly put pencil marks in a zigzag line all the way across your piece. As you sand, those lines will disappear. This helps you ensure you spent the exact same amount of time on every single spot across your surface, okay? This will give you the smoothest finish. Also, one more thing, using a pencil can do wonders when it comes to determining the wear of your sandpaper. I know a lot of people have issues when they're first starting out determining, oh, hey Josh, how long does my sandpaper last and how do I know when to replace it, okay? It comes with practice, alright? So when you practice a lot, you're going to eventually determine, oh, my sandpaper is bad. But for you guys that are starting up and doing beginner work, the pencil trick does wonders, because you'll start to see, as you sand, oh, okay, my pencil marks are disappearing, and then over time, uh-oh, I'm spending more time getting that pencil mark to disappear. That will help show you when your sandpaper is bad and when it needs to be replaced, okay? You'll also start to notice some gunk on the bottom side of your sandpaper start to build up. That means the minerals are wearing down. You'll see some of your sawdust kind of built up inside of that sandpaper. So that's when you can replace it as well. So the next thing we'll be doing is 220, last sanding schedule, we'll be wiping it off. Let's go. Alright guys, so we're going to do the next step here. I finished with the 220. Look how smooth that looks compared to over here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a big difference. We're going to use some product now. The first thing we want to do is simply take a rag, wipe this off, get the dust out. Alright? Just get kind of the minor stuff off of there. Okay? Make sure you always clean your piece before putting any liquid on it, okay? In this circumstance, I just use a rag, okay? Because I am using pre-stain, I use that to help clean the wood a little bit. If you're not going to use pre-stain, I would use denatured alcohol or mineral spirits or something that penetrates a little bit, but you can remove the excess. The reason for that is it dries fast. If you use water, the pores will soak up all that water, and you may have to wait a week or two before your wood is dry enough to refinish, okay? So you want stuff that evaporates quickly, like denatured alcohol or mineral spirits, okay? So because I'm not using those, I'm using pre-stain, which helps pop the grain, okay? So something that's interesting is I use this for all my products, okay? Everything I refinish, I pre-stain. Is it necessary? Not necessarily. But it works very well with open and soft grain woods such as birch or pine or maple, okay? So I use it anyways because it really evens out the grain. I've worked with so many different pieces of furniture that, you know, they just don't turn out right. Or, you know, maybe I did miss a spot sanding, and this really helps keep the color in a continuous flow. Okay, so we're going to pop this open a little bit. Actually, I'm going to mix it first. Typically a stick is your best bet, but I'm just doing this for you guys real quick. So I just recently used this, so it shouldn't be too solid or anything like that. So we're going to pop this open. Now, what we want to do here, okay, it's going to have kind of a gold and purple look to it, kind of a, oh, like a red wine or something like that. So we're going to take our rag, we're going to dip. You can use sponge brushes, regular brushes, whatever works best for you. I just found that a rag works well. When you're applying things, such as chemicals or other, you know, natural chemicals, organic maybe, always wipe them in the direction of the grain. Now I could go into detail about this, but all I'm going to tell you is that just do it, okay? It pushes the liquid down in the right places. If you do have a spot that's just kind of taking it a little funny, like maybe this knot here is kind of taking it a little funny, you can go in circles, work it in there, and then go smooth, okay? So once you get that material on, it doesn't take much at all, okay? We're going to let that dry for 15 minutes. I usually wait like 5 to 10, okay? If you're in a colder environment, go ahead and take the 15 minutes because it'll dry slower. You don't want it to fully dry and adhere to the surface, but we want it to just soak in the grain a little bit, and then we wipe off the excess. So I like to just maybe wait 5 to 10 minutes because I really don't want it to dry to my surface, okay? Plus I don't need super deep colors, alright? I'm just using the same color that I get for Minwax, okay? I want that dark walnut, the original color, so I'm not trying to darken anything, so I don't want that to really mix with the stain I'm using. So we're going to give it 10 minutes, we're going to wipe it off. Alright guys, so it's been 10 minutes. You can use the same rag that you wiped it on with in this circumstance, and just kind of roll it up and wipe it off. Again, wiping off with the grain, okay? So something to do when you're staining here is, I don't really have a technique on folding. Some people do. They like to lay it out and fold it in a hamburger style, So what I do is just kind of fold it in half, grab from the middle, pinch, and then start to just kind of roll it. That way you get one good staining surface, okay? If you have different folds of the cloth crossing, you're going to have kind of an uneven finish or left excess stain. So like you'll be wiping your stain off, and if there's a little fold in the cloth that leaves an indent, it might leave some leftover stain, okay? So make sure you get just a smooth ball like that. And also, it saves you a ton of time because you can reuse the same cloth if you're using one little surface that gets everything right off the bat. You can use the same cloth multiple times because you can just refold it, ball it up, and use that little area. Alright guys, so our next step is to use the dark walnut stain. Alright? And same applies for this one. There are tons of techniques you can do in terms of staining, okay? One of them being your time you leave it on, okay? So I can put this finish on, or this stain, leave it on for 10 minutes on half of the board, and leave the other on for 20 minutes. The side I leave on for 20 minutes is going to be significantly darker. So unlike the pre-stain that we used, there isn't really a time limit that you can wipe this off. You can wipe it off as soon as you put it on. You can leave it a little bit. It doesn't matter. I typically leave mine on for 5 minutes. It gives a perfect glimmer and just it lays on nicely, okay? Plus, if I keep a 5-minute rule in my head, as long as I'm doing 5 minutes, I know what color it's going to be after multiple pieces of furniture. So every piece of furniture I refinish, if I keep the 5-minute rule, I know that type of wood or that species of wood is going to look the same dang near every time. So we're going to do the 5-minute rule on this one. We're just going to dab. Staining is also something where you can put, you can use, brushes or other things like that, okay? So we're just going to nicely push it in here, nice and light. Now, something to be aware of, don't push too hard and don't try and use up all your stain on one dip, okay? Because if you do that, you're going to spend so much time trying to save money, trying to use the can on multiple projects, that you're just going to bleed out all of that stain from your towel or your rag, and it's going to be the thinnest color. It's not going to adhere well. The point of letting your stain soak is putting excess on it. So if you don't have excess stain, now you don't need a lot, but if you don't have excess stain, what's the point of soaking it, right? So we're just going to do this. Now, I'm not following along that black line I put in the middle of the board earlier. I'm getting close to it, but not exactly, so there's going to be a little difference in there. But like I said with the pre-stain, follow the grain. Make sure you get that on there, alright? We'll let that sit for 10 minutes. Or 5, sorry. 5 minutes. And we'll come back and wipe off the excess. Alright guys, so now that we're waiting the 5 minutes for that to dry, we're going to do this side now. I did want to mention, because of this tutorial, I didn't go full bore into it. I mean, this isn't what I do every single day, typically. So I'll be editing the video after this and stuff, so I'm not fully into this. So something I typically do is wear gloves. So make sure you wear gloves. Make sure you wear your PPE. I need to talk to you guys right now, so I don't have a mask on, but I would highly recommend a mask. Something I wanted to discuss though is don't wear particle masks. Those little white masks with the little notch on the front with the filter, those do not work for chemicals. Remember that. Those are only good for particles. I don't know if they even label it on the masks. I usually just buy them and not even look at them. But those types of masks, I don't know if they say particle mask on them, but that's what they do, is they only keep out particles. So when you're sanding, those things are great to use because they're cheap and you can buy a ton of them and use a lot of them, and it doesn't matter. It's not going to run you dry. Now, when you're working with chemicals, asbestos, finish, things like that, you need the correct PPE mask. Now, because I like to be safe, I go ahead and get the P99 or the P100, the big $30 ones that are super expensive. You don't have to go that far, but get the ones that have the cartridges separate from the mask and you just attach them on. They are a little expensive. Keep them in a bag. It'll help preserve them. But all I'm saying is use the correct PPE for this type of stuff. You don't want bad lungs. Even if it says it's organic or volatile or it doesn't smell type of thing, it doesn't matter, okay? Because I bet you 100 years from now, they're going to have all these state laws and regulations saying, oh, this causes cancer. Just like asbestos did. People thought that was safe, right? Okay, so I'm just saying wear the correct PPE. Now we're going to stain this other side real quick. And I'm going to do it across the grain in an incorrect fashion, okay? So we're going to do this. We're going to go real fast. Just kind of blotch it on there all crap-like, okay? I'm just going to throw it on there. Make it look nice and ugly. And I've literally seen people on YouTube do how-to videos, and they do it just like this. Now, the cool part about woodworking is it's pretty forgiving in some aspects, okay? You can make something look really good and not put much effort into it, okay? So we're just going to blotch that on there. Throw it on there, going across grain, and bam. Alright? So we're going to give both of those 5 minutes to dry, and we'll come back. Alright guys, so it's been about 5 minutes. Something I want to mention real quick. I actually went ahead and wiped the bad side down immediately after I put the stain on. Because I was like, I'm doing everything wrong that a lot of people do to showcase what you can do right and how it looks. So I figured instead of letting this one do the correct thing and sit for 5 minutes, I'm going to wipe it down immediately after, I put the stain on. Now, this one's ready to wipe. This is the one time you could probably use a new rag, okay? I've already pretty much covered this one up. I could probably squeeze some corners out, but I'm not going to be cheap. So we're just going to nicely wipe that one down. And so, as you can see, it's leaving some marks, right? That's because I didn't form a ball. There's some folds in the grain, in the cloth. So we're going to form a ball and show you what it looks like now. It's starting to go away, right? Now, you might get a couple creases in there that might cause some miscoloring. Okay. So that's pretty close. And if you want a darker appearance, you can let that stain sit on there a little longer, okay? Like I said, 15 minutes is kind of the suggestion. I do 5 to 10. I usually keep 5 because I like the colors I get out of that, especially with dark colors. They don't need to sit on there too long. And you know, time-wise, if I want a dark walnut, but I want it to be darker than dark walnut, I go and get espresso and do the 5-minute rule as well. Okay? If I want something to be darker, I just get a darker color. Yes, there are different types of pigments and dyes that give a different hue to the reflection and the transparency of the finish, but if I just want darker, I just get darker, okay? Just to keep it simple. If I'm experimenting with things and I really want to do good work, then I work on just different types of staining in terms of time duration, pigments, dyes, the staining methods, and I even do some patterns where I mark pencil lines through there, stain them, and get kind of like a diamond. I can do like diamonds or flowers or something. Okay, so that is wiped off. Let me show you the results. Alright, so we have our finished piece here. I'm going to try and get it in the light. You know what? Here's something you guys can do. It's a good trick. When you're looking at your finish, pull out your iPhone or your Android or whatever and pull out the LED light, okay? When you shine it at an angle, it helps you see issues with your piece or some things you missed, okay? It looks like we did a pretty good job over here. So this is literally why I stress this so hard. Look how smooth this grain is all along here. Here's our mark, okay? Now, look how terrible that reflection is, first of all. The light from my shadow, or the light from my shop, glides through. It's not disrupting the grain, you see? It's just one smooth reflection of light. You can still see the grain, and it's just perfect. Go over here, it's just blotch after blotch of just light transparency that is just totally disrupting the grain pattern. But not only that, you can still see the plane marks. Like I said earlier, if you catch the sun right, you're going to be able to see all those. You can even see this one because I did such a bad job on it. You can see, I see a couple plane marks, and I see some areas over here and here where maybe there was like a can sitting on there at one point, or a cup. But you can see the blotchiness, the miscoloration. You have some white spots over here, here, and then dark in between, okay? So you can literally see all of that. And now I'm not going to touch it because there's still stain on it, but if you guys could touch this, you would also be able to tell how terrible it feels. This is something they don't tell you on all these videos where they try and show you how to do something without doing it correctly. It might look like this, and maybe from a distance it looks okay, but, and honestly, I can't even get it to look good from here. But sometimes they do. Like over here, it doesn't look so bad, right? If I sanded it just a little harder, it probably would have looked okay. But what they don't tell you is what it actually feels like. And this, you know what, I'm going to touch it. It feels like sandpaper. It feels like I took sandpaper, flipped it over, and glued it to the face of the wood, honestly. It is so rough. Compared to this, it's just super smooth, sleek, clean, everything like that. Alright guys, so like I said, there are some major fundamentals that play a role in your piece. You can obviously tell which side is bad, okay? This is how people are teaching you how to finish wood, okay? And maybe if the whole piece looked like that, it wouldn't look so bad. But I'm telling you, the difference in the texture, the feel, the overall just look of that is so much better. And this is why I promote sanding. Don't let people tell you you can't sand. Yes, it's laborious. Yes, it's challenging. It's annoying to do. It's dirty. It's messy. Who cares? Get over it, and please use your sander. You can hand sand it this way. You can use the most basic sanding methods to get it to look like this instead of this, okay? Just do it, okay? So that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. Check out some of my other videos. Drop a comment in the box if you have some more DIY tips, or if you have tricks or anything you guys want to tell. If you're experienced, if you guys want to tell beginners some more tricks on this that we did today, drop it in the comments box. For anyone beginning, ask questions. Jump in the comments box. I will let you know. I'll talk to you. Hopefully other people in the community will let you know the right answer and help guide you along a new path. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video.